meeting's now in order.
Call to order the Town of Pembroke Park Charter Review Committee meeting. We all stand for Pledge Allegiance.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Weber,
Here.
Ms. Walker,
Here.
Ms. Cunningham,
Here.
Vice Chair Schrader,
Here.
and Ms. Buchanan is absent today. We have quorum.
Any additions or deletions to the agenda?
That's right. What does that mean?
If you want to add something to the agenda or
For
remove
tonight,
something,
yeah.
so
Okay.
we don't have anything at this time.
I'd like to get approval of the minutes from October 24th. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
Roll call.
Motion made by Ms. Weber, seconded by Ms. Cunningham. Ms. Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Cunningham,
Yes.
Vice Chair Schrader,
Yes.
Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
We'll now have the presentation with the town attorney.
For the record, I'm Jacob Horowitz. I'm the interim town attorney for the town of Pembroke Park. So a lot has happened since we met last. You may recall, I think that our last meeting was actually in November.
October.
October.
It's October. It's been a while. I almost had to ask for direction.
So since that time, Melissa has actually since transitioned as the town attorney, and they've asked our office to fill in on an interim basis. So we are currently your interim town attorney's office, and I think that the town will make a more permanent decision once it goes through its election, has a full council, and they figure out what direction they want to go in with regards to that position. But you may recall that we have stepped in. I think it was in October, maybe September. We were asked to take over from Melissa as counsel to the Charter Review Board. I know I had attended one meeting. My law partner, Brian Sherman, I think had attended one meeting as well. And what we have done is we went back to August of 2021, which was your first meeting, and went through the minutes, went through your agendas. I mean, you all have essentially been in session for over a year now, a year and a number of months. And we took the past 2 months or so to try to put pen to paper and really memorialize all of your ideas, recommendations, decisions, discussions into a draft charter for you to look at. And about 2 weeks ago or so, when you received a copy of tonight's agenda, there was a draft proposed charter in the backup. What I'd like, was there not?
You mean the thing that they sent to us?
You mean this thing?
That is, let's see, it looks a lot like this, although mine is blue. Yes, looks like exactly like what you're.
Well, it's sitting at the table here.
Okay, so you
No, it was the email. Yeah, but it wasn't 2 weeks ago. It was Friday.
Right, we've been sending it out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well,
So I got mine Friday.
I guess
Okay, well,
I got something, but I didn't see anything. I just thought it was two things about the meeting tonight and
Okay.
whatever, because
Well,
I punched the buttons and I didn't see them. So.
we had sent it over a couple weeks ago with the hopes that the board would have the opportunity to review it, look through it. What I'd like to do is this. This really, as you've heard from me, as you heard from Melissa previously, this is the town's constitution. We really want to be deliberative in how we approach it. And from my perspective, I want to make sure that the final product that you recommend to the town commission actually is your product. It reflects the ideas and the concepts that you are looking to recommend. What I'd like to do is take at least tonight's meeting. This may take 2 meetings. I don't want to, rush through this, but over the course of the next meeting or 2, walk you through this document. If you haven't had a chance to read it, that's fine. Again, I'm going to walk you section by section through the document.
And this is what was
This is what-
sent to us.
Yeah.
That is correct.
I'd rather read it from here anyway.
And again, all of the recommendations, discussions that you've had over the course of the past year or so should be memorialized in what's in front of you. You have opportunities to change those things, right? We took those conversations and recommendations and put pen to paper, but at the end of the day, whatever is approved in the form of a final charter, that is what will go to the town commission for their recommendation, for their consideration. So I'd like to just take a little bit of time.
Before you go to that
Please.
question,
Yeah.
so this is just a draft.
Just a draft. Absolutely. This is just a draft. It is a working document, and it is your document. Again, my goal is for this document to reflect your intentions and your recommendations. We, just for reference, my law firm, we represent a number of municipalities. We represent cities with strong mayor forms of government, like the city of Plantation and the city of Lighthouse Point. We represent cities with commission manager forms of government, like Pembroke Pines and Cooper City. We represent cities with a commission form of government, like Pembroke Park and like Hillsborough Beach. Any of these forms or models of government. My objective is to essentially embrace your recommendations in this and help you think through some of these issues. So again, and jump in, please interrupt me as I go. I want to keep this really as informal as we can, but I'm going to walk section by section through the document that's in front of you. Again, I'll go for an hour and a half. I can go on all night. I don't want to overbear on you all. So when we get to a point where you have had enough, I will not be offended. Just, tell me to stop and we can pick it up next month. Like I said, it will take, I envision, at least a meeting or 2 to get through this. So just by way of background, the current Pembroke Park Charter was adopted by the Florida legislature in 1959. There have been a very, very few handful of amendments that have taken place over the years. I don't have all of the history as it relates to the document. I know there were a couple changes in the 80s. There might have been a change in the 90s, but your charter has not gone through the process that you have taken it through over the course of the past year. This process, in my opinion, is long, long overdue. I think I mentioned it when we first spoke. I was first retained by the town in response to an investigation by the Inspector General's office in Broward County to help with some issues involving procurement that have been going back about 20 years. One of the outgrowths of that process was the Inspector General's recommendation to update the town charter. This is long overdue. So again, be mindful that you all are serving a very important function in the town in trying to bring the town into really the next century and get us more in line with how local government operates in really the modern sense. But again, if you look at the preamble, which really is the very first opening section of the charter, it references what you all have recommended as a commission manager for. You may recall back in August and November of 2021, Melissa Anderson was here. She made a presentation to you all. There was a PowerPoint. It referenced the 3 different forms of government, one of them being the commission manager form of government. And at the time, that was the model that you all had suggested or recommended moving forward with. So this charter that's in front of you tonight embraces that form of government. It's a manager commission form of government where you would have a professional manager who would essentially run the day-to-day operations of the town. Then you'd have a 5-member elected body who would essentially be the policy decision makers as it relates to the direction and the vision for the town and the direction the town will ultimately go in. But again, there's that professional town manager who would run the day-to-day, coordinate with staff, and deal with the administrative side of the town.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course, please.
The manager,
think
you
I'm
said that will be
watching
running the town.
Yes.
Who does that manager report to?
The commission, and we're going to get to that.
Oh, okay.
The way that this is set up, and again, this some of the things in here you have covered over the past year. Some of the things in here you have not covered over the past year. There are some concepts in here you will be seeing for the first time, only because as we put pen to paper, there were gaps that we needed to fill in.
Okay.
I used my best judgment based on other cities, towns of similar size, of similar age, of similar makeup to form some of the proposals that are in here. But again, if there's anything you would like to see differently, I'm not recommending this. I'm not wedded to this. This is your document, and I'm more concerned about it reflecting what your intentions are. But you'll see in the preamble, the very first section, it references the town of Pembroke Park shall be organized as a commission manager form of government. That is different from how the town currently operates. As we know, we currently have a real hybrid form of government. It is the only government model like it in Broward County. Hillsborough Beach used to have something similar. They amended their charter about 10 years ago to go to a commission manager form of government. But currently, we have this model where the mayor oversees the executive branch of the city's operations. The vice mayor oversees the financial division of the city's operations. We have a clerk commissioner who oversees the clerk function of the town, and then we have two other undesignated commissioners who are appointed to oversee various departments. It is I'll use the word antiquated system of government because, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. It's just it's a little bit outdated in the context of how government operates. Typically, in the state of Florida, we either have a strong mayor, where the mayor is the administrator of the city. Plantation is like that. Lighthouse Point are the two in Broward County that have those models. Some of the other bigger cities have that as well. And then most cities have the commission manager form of government, which is what you've recommended. So section 1.1 is the outset. And again, the first few sections really are very boilerplate. They're very, very template language that you see in just about every municipal charter, certainly in the county, if not in the state. But what the first section does essentially recreates the town of Pembroke Park. It embraces your former charter, which was adopted on June 20th, 1959. It's referenced as 59-1722 Laws of Florida. It's codified by the Florida legislature. It recognizes that as the initial document which established the town. And then it references Chapter 166. Chapter 166 is the chapter in Florida that is known as the Municipal Home Rules Powers Act. That is the section of Florida law that governs municipalities. Municipalities are unique in state law under this particular chapter, whereas we have as a city all of the power that we choose to accept, except for that which is prohibited by state law. There's special districts. You may have heard of like the Central Broward Water Control District or the South Broward Hospital District. Those are independent special districts established by the legislature. A special district only has the power that's set out in its enabling legislation. So if the legislature creates the South Broward Hospital District as a healthcare provider, it only has the power to provide healthcare. It can't get into other functions beyond that which its charter provides. A city, on the other hand, has all of the power granted under state law unless that power is either prohibited or preempted. So we can do anything that we want to do for a public or municipal purpose unless the legislature has said no. And that's what Chapter 166 tells us. That applies to all municipalities in the state of Florida, and that's the language that's embraced in the creation section of the charter that I put together. Now, Section 102 speaks to other governmental relations. It's essentially a policy sentence. And what it says is that the town may exercise any of its powers or perform any of its functions and may participate in the financing thereof, because a very big part of what we do not only is making the decisions, but being able to fund them, actually being able to implement those decisions jointly or in cooperation with any one or more civil agency, state agency. There's a provision, it's called in Chapter 163, another provision of Florida law, is the Intergovernmental Powers Act. 166 applies to municipalities, 163 in various parts applies to intergovernmental coordination. There's something called an interlocal agreement, which is an agreement between governmental agencies. Section 102 essentially embraces that opportunity. This is what tells us we can enter into interlocal agreements with West Park for fire services through BSO, or with the school board, or with any of those other state or local agencies out there, all embraced through the Intergovernmental Relations Act, which is embraced in Chapter 163. And again, it is just as a matter of routine reflected in municipal charters, so we included that up front as Section 1.02. Section 1.03, again, is somewhat of a policy statement, speaks to all extraterritorial powers conferred upon the town by general or special act prior to the adoption of this charter. What this tells us is if there is some power that the legislature granted the town of Pembroke Park before this charter was adopted, this charter will have no impact on the town's ability to utilize that power. So if there's something in the prior charter that was conferred upon the town, we're not giving up that right by adopting this new governing document for the town, so long as it's not in conflict. If there was a conflict in this document, if and when it was approved by the voters, would prevail. But if there's no conflict between the charter that the voters approve and some other power that's been conferred, this is what tells us that those powers don't go away by virtue of adopting this municipal charter. Yeah, you have a question?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. In section 1.4, this is a general legal statement. It's included in most municipal charters. And what it essentially tells us is that the powers of the town are to be liberally construed in favor of the town, limited only by the Constitution, by general law, or by specific limitations set out in this charter. Right? So if we do something as the town of Pembroke Park, there is a presumption that the action we've taken is lawful, it's legal, it's in accordance with our charter, unless there is something that tells us otherwise. But the presumption is we have acted in accordance with our charter, and any challenge to any action that we've taken, if there is gray area, if it is debatable, this charter is to be interpreted liberally in favor of the town. And that's the way the language reads. Very, very common language in municipal charters. Okay. Section 1.05. This is unique to Pembroke Park. This language has not changed. I took this verbatim out of your existing charter, and this is intended to preserve the nature of Pembroke Park and its unique relationship with the mobile home communities in the town. Right? Most cities do not have those types of relationships with those types of communities because, again, the way that we are configured, the way that our residential population is organized, we have a lot of mobile home parks. Many cities have them. You know, we represent the city of North Lauderdale. There are several of them. They are so recognized in Pembroke Park that the legislature embraced them in the town charter, and we have not touched that section. So we've continued to carry over the language from your existing charter in section 1.05. Now you'll see a note at the side there. I have asked the town's planning consultant and building official just to confirm that the zoning districts that are referenced in the charter are in fact accurate. These zoning districts go back again to 1959. A lot has happened since then. I just want to confirm that this is in fact a true statement as it stands with regards to the zoning districts. But that aside, the relationship between the town and the mobile home communities in the town would have no change when it comes to this this recommendation, this proposal. Section 2.01, next, this is Article 2, speaks to the corporate limits of the town. This is something that we have no discretion over. This is the section that defines our geographical boundaries. It's a legal description. It's usually a couple pages long. Sometimes it is actually embedded in the charter. What we have done here is essentially reference it as being on file in the town clerk's office. Town clerk, I assume, has a copy of the legal description. One hopes this is currently how our charter reads. We've just carried that over. Every municipal charter defines its boundaries by legal description, meets and bounds. Pembroke Park is no different. You know, we have not adjusted or changed, obviously, the boundaries of the town. That does and can happen from time to time in the context of annexation or de-annexation. You may notice that your current charter actually references, and it's not here now, your current charter actually references 3 areas. It speaks to see. Section 9.A of your current charter speaks to Miami Gardens, Carver Ranches in West Hollywood Hills, and Lake Forest. Back in 1959, these three areas, neighborhoods, were all unincorporated Broward County, I assume. They have since been annexed to various cities, whether it's West Park, Miami Gardens is now incorporated as Miami Gardens, Lake Forest is incorporated. So this section 9.A in your current charter, I've deleted, because everything that was contemplated by that section back in 1959 has in fact occurred, so that would be considered antiquated language in your new charter. So that's come out. But
So
the
you're reading from that one, but I don't, you mean section 2.01?
No, I'm referring, well, here, I can show you. I was referring 2.01 of the new charter references, this is the current, that would be your current boundaries.
Oh, but it's so vague.
Well, because it's on file in your clerk's office, because there's nothing there. The
So how would
boundaries,
you know what it say?
all I can do is take the word of your engineers that it is a current description of the town's geographical boundaries. It's typically a legal description. It's all meets and bounds, it's very long.
Longitude, latitude.
Longitude, latitude, exactly.
It's not streets and avenues at all.
Yeah,
There's an example of it in the Fort Lauderdale Constitution
Yeah,
that we
the-
Okay.
give as an example.
and again, some
It's like 2 pages long.
some cities actually put it verbatim in the document. Some cities reference it as being on file in the clerk's office. There's not a right or wrong way. I only mention annexation because your current charter does reference 3 areas that were
Okay.
at least considered as being annexed at some point in the future into the town. They've since been annexed into other areas, as I understand it. But again, the geographical boundaries of your town, I don't get to control that.
Yeah.
You don't get to control that. The town commission, with very limited exception, doesn't get to control that. It's really through annexation to the legislature to change the borders of the town, boundaries of the town. Okay.
This is the Fort Lauderdale description.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
And that's sort of what they look like. It's just words on a. Yeah, it's,
Degrees and
again, it takes an urban planner, a civil engineer to decipher it. I'm a lawyer. Okay, it makes Greek to me.
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to get into really the substance of the issues. All right.
Okay.
When we start in Article 3 and move forward, this is when we really get into how the town operates. And Article 3 is what speaks to the legislative branch of the town. And again, if I have misstated something, if anything in here is inconsistent with your recollection of what was previously decided, please tell me, because I've tried to go back and recreate what you all have done over the past year. I worked with the minutes that I had, and I hope I captured everything to the best of our collective recollection. One of the things to keep in mind when you change the form of government, there needs to be a transition period. Right? This can't happen overnight. Right? We're going to get into something that's called staggered terms, which again can't happen without either extending terms or shrinking terms. Right? You currently have a situation where all 5 members of the town commission are elected at the same time every 4 years. Right? That is very unique. Okay? Most cities have what is referred to as staggered terms, where you have 3 members elected on even number of years, or every 2 years, then 2 years later, the other 2 members are elected. Only an even number of years, but it's constantly rotating, so you never risk having a full 5-member turnover in any one election cycle. But the way 3.01 starts is that there shall be a town commission, as we know, with all of the legislative powers of the town vested therein, consisting of 5 members. Right? We're not suggesting there should be a 7-member town commission or a 9-member town commission. We're still going with a 5-member town commission. One of those commission members would be the mayor, who shall be electors of the town. So every member of the commission has to be a registered voter in the town, which we know. Right? Now, commencing with the election in March of 2027. Okay, so this again is some number of years out. Candidates shall run at large office of mayor, Commission seat 1, Commission seat 2, 3 and 4.
So it's 5.
Well, remember, you've got the
Mayor
mayor
is 5.
plus 4, 4 plus 1.
So we're gonna,
4 plus 1, but hang
excuse
on.
me,
I thought
right now, we're divided into 5 districts, are we not?
Right now, you're divided into 5 districts.
We're talking about redistricting it to 4 districts?
Well, that would be an option.
How
Now,
do we get,
That's one of the things. I think I have a note here. I think that one of my notes is to speak to districts, because our charter, your current charter, and I don't think I have it here, doesn't speak to districts, right? It talks about 5 members. It
Yeah.
doesn't really speak to districts. There's no redistricting.
So we have one district that doesn't have a commission?
Is that right? I don't know the answer.
I don't,
Okay,
yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have 5 districts, but the mayor is in one of those districts. So remember something, they run for the district, then when they are, after they get sworn in, they come here, and among them, they determine who will be the mayor.
Right, so
So in
that's-
this situation, you have somebody who's able to run for mayor, and then you'll have 4 other seats.
so the mayor resides
That
from
makes
within
sense.
one of your current districts.
So the mayor is the mayor and the commission for an area. I mean,
Yes.
well,
Yeah,
I
it
mean, mayor
represents-
for all the areas, but also the commission for that area.
Well, and one of the things that we've changed that we're going to get to, you currently have a situation where your commission elects one of their own
Right,
to be the mayor.
right.
This proposes having the mayor elected at large. So by the voters. So in other words, you would have one candidate who qualified and ran for mayor. You wouldn't have the mayor elected from among the 5 members of the commission.
But then I don't get, then that's what confuses me, is that if the mayor is gonna run for mayor, then don't we also want a commissioner from each district?
That's a question. I mean, again,
Because let's say, for example, the mayor that we have now runs for mayor again.
and he's unopposed.
He happens to be from my district.
right?
So are you telling me that if he runs for mayor, then I don't have a district representative because the guy is mayor? He's not my district rep.
Well, he's still remember, he's still from within your district. I mean, the mayor is going to represent the entire
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
He still currently is from within your district. In other words, you currently don't have a district.
So his title will be mayor / commissioner.
Well, it would really be mayor. I mean, I guess you could couch it that way, but it would just be that we would.
You just have 2 jobs.
He would. Yeah. I mean, theoretically, the mayor represents the entire town, but the mayor's role under a commission manager form of government is really ceremonial, and there are certain things the mayor can and can't do. I mean, the mayor is the ceremonial head of the city. The mayor can execute contracts on behalf of the city. The mayor is the city's representative for service of process purposes. I mean, there's certain things that come along with the position of the mayor. But the way that it's currently structured, you would have 4 commission seats and 1 mayor elected at large.
So
If now,
you couldn't run for mayor without also running for commissioner.
no. You'd only run. You don't. You under this model.
Yeah, I'm not
We
getting
would
my head.
we would have to go. And again, I'm kind of thinking this through. We would have to reduce to 4 districts.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, we would now. Pembroke Park is unique in Broward County because we just had a census. We just completed the decennial census. Most municipalities in the county have gone through a redistricting because once the census comes out, you get the population numbers. You find out where your population is, congregated. You can rebalance your commission districts. We didn't do that in Pembroke Park. We can, but we didn't.
Yeah.
One of the things that we may want to consider, and again, I don't think that this has come up in the context of charter review. Do we want to go from 5 districts to 4 districts plus a mayor? Do we want to keep it, for instance, or do you want to keep 5 districts? You could, again, you could do 5 districts
Number.
plus a mayor.
I like an odd.
Should be an odd number on the dais for voting purposes.
As one more person we paying.
So, in other words, and I'll use Pembroke Pines again, which is a city, 10 times the size plus. They have 4 commission districts, plus a mayor elected at large, right? In Cooper City, for example, they used to have 5 commission districts. The mayor they were all elected at large, one of whom was the mayor.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Right? I mean, that's, again, that would ensure that there's representation from every area of the town, because you have to have at least one member from each district run, but one of those people decides, I'm going to run for mayor, or the position of mayor. The challenge then becomes, if you have somebody who lives in District 2 and somebody who lives in District 3, they both decide, I want to run for mayor, right? Which creates a challenge that we'd have to, think about in the context of drafting. But these, again, these are the kinds of things that, I need some help flushing out to get a better sense as to how you all envision the town operating.
Particularly if those two people don't run for election on the same cycle.
Well, the challenge with having staggered terms, and this is one of the challenges, is the mayor is going to be on one of those cycles. So if there's ever somebody on the off cycle who wants to run for mayor, they would have to resign to run for that office. You can't, under Florida law, hold 2 offices whose terms run concurrently. You have to actually resign your office 10 days prior to qualifying. So there's a process to resign, qualify, creates a vacancy on the commission, then you go through the filling the vacancy process. So right now we have 3 commission members.
Right.
But we have no provision in our charter that speaks about filling vacancies. So that's a glaring omission, in my opinion, as it relates to our current charter. But we have a vacancy provision in here. But again, help me understand, do we envision 4 districts, 5 districts? I could show you, why don't I do this? Let me go through this section. Maybe we can kind of see how I've done. Yeah, please.
Okay. Currently, what do we have?
Currently, you have 5 districts.
But this is saying 4. Help me understand
Yeah,
this.
well, this is different. The way I have it, because you all decided that you wanted an at-large mayor elected by the people of Pembroke Park, I have this drafted with 4 seats, essentially. So, in other words, I have this drafted, and I believe that I provided for the, elimination of districts. So I have, you can have all 5 people, because again, in a town like Pembroke Park, which is relatively small geographically, right? You can have districts, or many towns of this side have no districts. And you have 4 people running for 4 seats. You would have seat 1, 2, 3, 4, and the mayor. And I can decide as a candidate, do I want to run for seat 1? Do I want to run for seat 2? Do I want to run for mayor? And I would have to decide at the time of qualifying. Right? And that's essentially the
But without
model.
districts, anybody could run for any one of those seats.
Anybody can run for anyone, and everybody would run at large. Everybody runs
As
town-wide.
voting for and representing the
the
entire
entire town. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Now, you could have districts where you're only voting for the people within your district,
Right.
which is also not uncommon. But again, these are, I'll need some feedback as to, how you want to address those things. But let me just finish this section to show you what I've tried to do, and then you can help me think through it a little bit. So the way that I have it proposed, you've got a town commission comprised of 5 members. All of them are electors of the town. Beginning in March of 2027, you've got the mayor and 4 candidates running for office, 4 seats. All right. Anybody seeking to run pays a filing fee. All right. Now, in order to be eligible to run, candidates for mayor, they must be registered voters in the town, and they must reside and have lived in the town for 1 year prior to qualifying, which is what your current charter requires. So in order to run for office, to be eligible to run for office, you must have lived in the town for 1 year prior to qualifying. Now, all qualified voters of the town may cast 1 vote for mayor and 1 vote for a candidate for each commission seat, right? So you got 4 seats and a mayor. Everybody in the town votes for every position on the dais. And whoever is the highest vote getter, the individuals receiving the highest vote counts, become the elected individual representing that seat, that district, if we want to have districts, or as the mayor representing the whole town. Now, we talk about staggered terms, and this is where things get a little tricky. The way that I have it, because I know there was discussion about trying to implement staggered terms. The way that I have it proposed, commencing with the election in March of 2027, the person who's elected to serve as mayor and the person who's elected to represent Commission Seat 1 and to represent, that's a typo there, to represent Commission Seat 2 are elected to 4-year terms. Okay, so in 2027, you'll have 3 commission members, a mayor and 2 commissioners elected to a 4-year term. Okay?
New running.
It'd be a clean slate. In other words, you've got an election in March of 2023, right? This coming March, in 2 months, you're electing 5 new members, right? They're elected to 4-year terms. Okay? In March of 2027, at the end of those terms, you're going to have 3 people, the mayor and 2 of those commissioners, running for a 4-year term.
Again.
Then there's also, they could run again, or you could have new candidates.
So what about those 2 leftovers? They're going to have a longer term.
Well, but here, because remember, everybody who's elected this coming March gets 4 years.
Yeah.
That's what your current charter provides. Everybody who's elected gets 4 years. But those other 2 positions in March of 2027, I have them proposed to being elected to a 6-year term.
That's too long.
Okay? Now, the alternative, and you'll see my note out in the margin, the alternative is have them be elected to a 2-year term. Because at some point, there needs to be a transition to get onto staggered terms. You need either somebody elected to 6 years or somebody elected to 2 years.
Yeah, but that's just a one-time
One
thing
time.
until we get into the
One
proper
time,
rotation.
once you get in the rotation,
Yeah.
everybody's back on 4 years.
Right.
We're not changing the terms of office with the exception of 2 individuals, 1 time.
Basically, do we want to give 2 people a longer term or 2 people a shorter term? Do we want to have an extra election? Do we want to
Okay,
finance
I
an extra
understand that
election?
because if you get rid of everybody one time, now you're talking about electing everybody coming in that don't know anything,
Which is what you
brand
have now.
new,
Which is what you
and you're not, instead of having a couple of old people that's been there to teach them what's going.
And that's what it is. It ensures that you don't have a complete turnover of your commission
one time.
At one time.
Yeah.
Right.
There are times when I can think of that might be a good thing.
And again, that's and I'm not suggesting one is right and the other's not, but but if you look at the last sentence, beginning in March of 31, right, the term of office for all members shall be 4 years.
Right.
Right. So it is a one-time adjustment just to provide for that staggering. But again, you could just as easily have 2 people in 27 run for 2 years, as opposed to running for 6 years. Either option will get you to the same place.
Right.
And I just looked at some models as to how it's previously been done. It's been done both ways. I have no preference or recommendation. People, if you run for Congress, the U.S. House of Representatives, they run for 2-year terms. If you run to be a senator, they run for 6-year terms. There's not a right or wrong way, but I'd like your input as to whatever preference, if the intent is to move to staggered terms, how you would envision that happening. Any thoughts?
This is a one-time thing, right?
Yeah.
Now I have it 1 time 6 years. It could be.
I don't believe in the 6 years.
Do not.
Go with the 2-year?
I just don't believe in the 6 year. That's
Okay.
that's too.
Okay.
but
So
for-
the way that if this was, if we had it then in March of 2027, you would have the individual elected to seat 3, and seat 4 would be a 2-year term.
Right.
So then you would have people who were elected in March of 2027 to a 4-year term would be the mayor and 2 other positions. You would have 2 seats elected to a 2-year term. They would be up again in 2029. And then you would have elections in 29 and 31. Every 2 years, and starting in 29, they would all be elected to 4-year terms. And that would get you on a staggered cycle. Again, 2 years will get you there, or 6 years will get you there. You just need you need something to provide for the adjustment.
So District 5 would become District 4? Because.
Under this model, what I have done, I have eliminated districts. All right, I have everybody running town-wide. If you would like to have districts, then I will need to add a section that provides for presumably 4 districts with an at-large mayor.
What's the difference?
Well, if you have,
Town and district.
well, the model that I have, the one that I put here, is you have 4 seats on the commission and a mayor. So you have seat 1, seat 2, seat 3, seat 4. Everybody runs town-wide. You can live anywhere in the town. When you come in to qualify, I'm going to qualify to run for seat 1. Or I'm going to come in to qualify to run for seat 2. Whatever it is.
So you're not obligated to a certain district. You working for the whole
You
town.
are working for the whole.
Instead of district.
Everybody is working now.
Yeah.
But now some would argue that even if I'm elected from within a district, I'm still working for them. And that's again different. Elected officials view districts and what their obligations are to the entire municipality differently, right? But the way that I have it, there would be no districts. Everybody would run at large, and you could reside anywhere in the town so long as you've lived in the town for at least 1 year prior to qualifying.
That's the way we have it.
1 year requirement.
You have it now.
The 1 year is what currently is there. What's different is now you have districts.
Yeah.
Right? Now we could, and again, I don't have any problem rewording this and bringing it back next month. We could have 4 commission districts and an at-large elected mayor. And I would recommend, because you currently have 5 districts, I would suggest if we were going to go in that direction, we should probably eliminate 1 district, redistrict the entire town into 4 districts. Typically, you would engage a third party like FAU or University of Miami. You know, they have consultants that work with municipalities to come in and provide unbiased, demographic breakdowns of commission districts. They'll typically present 3 or 4 models to the commission as to how districts can be structured. There's a lot of state law, there's a lot of federal law with regards to districts. They need to be evenly apportioned, they need to be contiguous. There's a whole list of requirements for districting under both the Equal Rights Amendment and all other state and federal rules and regulations with regards to that process. But if and when we get to that point, I would suggest an outgrowth of this charter amendment process. If we have districts, we should redistrict the town. I mean, you really should start from a clean slate with new commission districts. And again,
Redistrict to 4.
I would suggest if the intent is to keep a 5-member commission with an at-large elected mayor, there should be 4 commission districts plus the mayor.
Or we could, I'm a little confused about when are we going to decide if we want all commissioners to cover all the districts?
That's what we're talking
This
about right
is
now.
the discussion.
Yeah.
This is the discussion. So when are we going to decide that? Tonight or?
Well, no. What I'd like to do is this. We're going to talk through some of these issues.
Yeah.
What I will do is I will go back and try to put, again, pen to paper to embrace whatever you all decide.
Yeah.
And then next month I will show it to you how it would be written, like actually worded in the charter.
Mm-hmm.
At some future moment, this is going to be presented to the town commission.
Mm-hmm. Well, shouldn't we decide that right now?
No.
As far as why not? I mean, otherwise we're leaving too many question marks going forward.
Let me try to help out. So basically, what your attorneys is explaining to you, right, is basically if you're going to have districts or not have districts. So that is what you have to determine, and he's explaining to you when you have districts, if you maintain districts, how it can be done to also have a mayor that is voted on. That's what to explain to you guys. Now, if you guys don't want districts, then he will explain to you a different ballgame.
Yeah, but again, if you would like to keep districts,
Yeah, but when are we going to decide whether we're going to keep the districts or not?
when are you gonna make a final decision?
Yeah,
And
when
you
we
can-
go through all of this.
Oh, okay. So we're going to make that decision later.
You can make that decision right now, and I will take that direction and draft whatever you want to do, and next month I will bring it back and show it to you. The final product, my expectation is either in February or in March, you all will have gone through this entire charter and say, okay, this is consistent with what a majority of us would like to recommend to the commission. By motion, you will adopt a recommendation that we will then present to the commission. And I envision a workshop or two going through this document with the commission. I would encourage you all to attend that workshop if and when it happens, because the commission may have questions. Why do you think this as opposed to that? What was the thought process as to why you recommended 4 districts instead of 5 or no districts?
Okay, I have a question if you
yeah.
don't mind. Okay, the election that is coming up in March.
Yes.
It consists of 5 districts, correct?
The current model, 5 districts.
Okay.
I need you to speak into the mic
Yeah.
and speak louder, please.
Okay, so if we go to the 4, how will each of those people in the 5 district
Well,
compose?
the way that redistricting works, you would have 5 members elected from within one of those 5 districts in March. When you redistrict under Florida law, and it would be in the charter as well, you cannot be redistricted out of your office. So let's say we have 5 districts. We go through the process to eliminate one of those districts, and now we have 4. Well, who used to live in District 5 may now live in District 4, or may now live in District 2, right? Because District 5 may not exist anymore.
Okay.
Right? That person will be able to stay in office for the remainder of their term. But once that term is up, then we're back to 4 districts. You've got a new model. It would depend on where they lived as to what position or what district they'd be eligible to run and represent. But if it's, and again, this is good. If it is your intent to keep districts in Pembroke Park, and it sounds like that might be the case.
Well, I don't know about that.
I don't know about that either.
That's what I'm saying. We got 5 people here, but that to me that's not been decided.
Well, but again, this is this is good because again, the way that I have it, I did not contemplate districts.
Yeah.
So if the intent is to add districts, it would be helpful to know that. And again, if you don't need to make any final decisions.
Okay.
But if you would like me to bring back a revised draft of this that creates 4 districts plus an at-large mayor, just so you can see it and see what that would look like, I'm happy to do that too. I mean, again, there's not a right or wrong way to go about this process. So I want to make sure that the end product reflects what a majority of you are looking to recommend. I mean, that really is my goal at the end of this. So if there's consensus, if there's direction, if somebody would like to make a motion with regards to...
I think we should just right now talk about this little thing here about whether we should. My opinion would be, I think all 4 should cover the whole area. I just don't see that district.
Everybody-
One guy in this district and one, it doesn't make no
They
sense to
should
me.
know the rules
We're
for
small enough.
all of the city. It shouldn't be one person just
Yeah,
handling this.
and then
area.
maybe just that one
No,
person takes care of his and the rest don't do nothing.
Right.
I mean, I feel like
Everybody
it should
should be handling the city's
be. Yes.
business. That's my opinion. It shouldn't be this one person.
And that's my
person
opinion.
here,
I don't
one
know how
person
you
there.
two.
I happen to agree with that. I think everybody should be at large.
Everybody.
I think we're a small enough city, that we can do everything as one.
Does somebody want to make a motion to remove the districting?
Okay, let's see if I can word this properly. I'd make a motion that we eliminate districts from the charter and just go to an at-large system for commissioners and the mayor.
So you're talking about essentially 4 plus 1, 4 at-large commissioners plus 1 at-large elected mayor.
Correct, but all 5 of those positions are voted on by every citizen in Pembroke Park.
And work for every citizen.
Yeah.
If that is not the case, I don't.
Now,
agree with
are there others that have like this too? Is this common or?
It is not unique. In fact, I'll offer this. And again, I can speak from my personal experience. Cooper City, where I'm the city attorney, in November of 2022, they just eliminated districts. They just did exactly what you are describing. They had 4 commission districts plus a mayor elected at large. They eliminated the districts. established for commission positions. So when you come in to qualify, you still need to identify what seat you're running for. I'm going to run for seat 1, seat 2, I'm going to run for mayor, right? But then you are you're elected at large, and you're representing the entire city.
And if you're a citizen and you want to speak to your commissioner, you can speak to anybody.
Speak to anybody.
You don't have to look for the one guy who's representing your district.
Right.
All of them represent you.
And that's, it's less common in larger municipalities, as you can imagine. I mean, again, like, Plantation, which is a fairly large city, they have districts that are 5 times the size of our town. So it again, when you have smaller municipalities, the idea of geographical districts becomes a little less common. But again, there's really not a right or wrong way. And that's sort of what I want to emphasize.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to go ahead and remove districts. Do you have a second?
I second it.
Motion seconded by Ms. Cunningham. Do you want to have any further discussion? No? Okay, so I'm going to call the roll. Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
I'm conflicted right here, to be honest.
I need a yes or no, ma'am.
Is it yes or no?
Yes, ma'am. You either want districts or
Can,
you
can I, before you just one thing, just keep in mind that you're essentially giving me direction, because I need to go back and draft, although the direction you're going in is close to what we have drafted, but you're going to have an opportunity to vote on the final document at some future moment. So, I mean, you could be on the record opposing this idea, but this vote is packaged into a overall product. So there may be disagreements on various issues as we go along, but at the end of the day, I'm going to ask you all to vote on a final product, which you may not agree with entirely, but my hope is we'll have something that reflects a majority of the board's intent.
I'll say yes, so long as they do what they're supposed to do, and they be on the town side and can address all the town citizens resident concern. That's all I'm looking for.
Mr. Schrader?
Yes.
Ms. Cunningham?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Now, before we get off of this section, if I could I want to make sure I understand with regards to the staggered terms. Do we all agree that there should be staggered terms? And do we all agree that the staggering should be the result of a 2-year shift, not a 6-year shift? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and just how that would play out, practically, again, we've got elections in March of 27, in March of 23. In March of 27, you would have 3 people, a mayor and 2 commissioners elected to 4 years. You would have 2 people, Commission Seat 3 and Commission Seat 4, elected to 2 years. And then in 29, they would be elected or re-elected to a 4-year term. And at that point in 29, you would have staggered terms every 2 years. Every 4 years. So just, chronologically. Now, I don't know if it makes a difference, but just so you know, that would put us a little bit of an outlier, because most places have elections in even-numbered years. Pembroke Park has elections in odd-numbered years. I mean, we're currently a little bit of an outlier from that perspective. I'm not suggesting that we change that, but just something to keep in mind. If you decide that you want to, make that change, then we can contemplate, that adjustment as well. But just it is a little uncommon to have elections in odd-numbered years.
The only thing I'm thinking about is monetarily. I've always wondered if it would be cheaper for us to have elections the same time Broward County has elections, because they control when we can do this, don't they? The Broward County.
Well,
I think it's in there, but we don't reach that point.
yeah, it's the supervisor of elections, which essentially controls the timing and the conduct of elections. But that kind of brings me into the next section, 3.02. We currently have the way it currently reads, we have general municipal elections shall be held on the first Tuesday following the first Monday in March, commencing in the year 2027, and every 4 years thereafter. And again, we'll contemplate staggered term. Now, one thing I don't think that you all had talked about before, but I did want to put out there for discussion. Do we, and is there any interest in switching to November elections?
Oh, you mean making it the same term?
Well,
Really, that's when the government.
well, except remember that they're having their elections in even numbered years. So we would still be off on an annual basis.
That's true.
But we would have November elections as opposed to March elections.
Okay, what are the pros and cons of we do an election with the general election?
Well,
For
please.
to get people to come out, if people are coming out in November to vote, now you're gonna tell them in this city, oh, you need to come back in March now.
I think a lot
The
of people
interest-
won't come, yeah.
So bringing people out.
I mean, look, if you all really want to kind of get in line with the rest of the county and the rest of local government, we really should look at switching to even numbered year elections in November. Now, March, there are other cities that have March elections. We are not unique in having March elections. Pembroke Pines has March elections. What's that? There are 4 with March elections. I think Oakland Park has March elections. I mean, there are a couple that have March elections. So that's not, it's not common, but it's not unheard of. Having elections in odd number of years, that's a little less common.
Because you just to look, if they was to actually just go back and do a survey of the amount of people that's coming out to actually vote for commission.
I mean,
The
I-
rating I know has to
does
be very
anybody
low.
have that figure for
Very
here?
low. I know it has to be low.
No, but I agree with you
People don't come
that
out.
we'll get more people
Yeah.
voting if they're coming out to vote anyway,
Yeah.
and we're on the same ballot.
Because people, even though you live in this city, they're not realizing the importance. They're looking at, that's just somebody, they're gonna do what they want to
Well,
do.
and that means the city has to do its own advertising.
Yeah.
We have to let everybody know. Whereas it's like, okay, well, the senator or whatever race is going on, they're already advertising the election for that, and
Let me fill something in. In our ordinance, we do have for advertising, which I've already taken care of. Now, if I'm not mistaken, in the past, what I've heard is that with 200 votes, you win, because only about 200 people come out to vote, whatever.
I know.
yeah.
Now, understand something, we'll get a better number now in March. Okay, so just take that into consideration.
What do you mean by better number?
We'll be able to tell how many people vote.
Yeah,
you'll-
we'll have a better idea, yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that make, and
Yeah.
look,
So-
and again,
Take that into consideration.
Right.
from a timing perspective,
Right.
that actually, thank you, Marlon. That's a really good point.
And you be a registered voter to vote for these things in
Yes.
March?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, everything, yeah.
So they go through the process like they do for,
Same thing.
You have to
Yeah.
be a
you need
resident
your
of the
card
city.
and, on the list and so on and so forth.
And that actually is a really good point. And one thing we could do, if you want to just kind of dog ear this conversation, we can continue this conversation the end of March or in April, because time is on our side as it relates to this process. I mean, you guys have been at this a long time, right? I mean, I've been
Nothing like this, I think.
I've been, kind of involved for just a couple months now, but I know you guys were doing this a year before, Melissa asked us to step in and help out. So we'll have a sense in March what the turnout is, what the cost to the city was. You may have a better idea as to, how you may be better informed as to a recommendation after having gone through that election.
Now, how is the people in the town informed that, hey, we had a commissioners voting in March? How does?
Advertise.
Huh?
You see flyers and stuff. You
See flyers around the.
I mean, I've seen a couple of flyers
I've
with
seen the
people
flyers.
running for commission, but that's all I've seen. So is that all you see then?
In the past, there hasn't been as much advertisement as we did this time around, specifically by our mayor. Now, he was out there at every single event handing out flyers.
Right.
My position, I go ahead and I advertise twice, and in this year I did 3 times. In the
Advertise how?
newspaper. In the newspaper.
What newspaper?
I put everything on the Sun Sentinel. But
And what about the paper that comes out through the town? How often does that come out?
the local, our local newsletter, which is this,
Yeah.
it's supposed to come out quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
In this last year, I think that it came out 3 times, and in here we did have the election. This one's the one that came out fall and winter of 2022.
So that's mailed
So
to
this went
everybody?
out. Sorry,
That's mailed to everybody?
this was put on the mail. Yes.
I get it, I don't know about lately, I always get that.
Yeah, I got one, but I don't recall that one seeing the
But a quick
commissioners on
question,
it.
not just straight from the topic. Cost-wise, for the, to do it in the general election and the other way, I mean, how does that go? The
That's what
general
he said.
election cost-wise?
Yeah, I mean,
We
you
will
Okay,
know
so-
more
may be able to speak more to cost.
Cost wise.
after March.
Okay, so cost wise, the one now in March is costing us $6,000.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to utilize the services from November, then it would be a lot less.
Of course, yeah.
Because they're already coming here. They're already doing everything. This time around in March, they're doing it specifically for the 4 or 5 municipalities that are gonna have an election. Okay? So that's where we each are paying our amount because of that. The same thing as we have a special election, it costs us so much more because it's just for us.
So is
The
this
big
one in March
election
just
would
for
be
us?
Less.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So we're
There's
paying the
advantages
county.
and disadvantages to those type of elections.
We have to pay the county that money, because they're coming out.
So the one coming up in March is just for this area, period.
It's just for Pembroke Park.
Just-
And it would be less than the one coming up in November,
Well, there's no
general
No,
election.
no, other way around. It's gonna cost us less if we did it in the general election in November than the standalone ones that we do in March.
Okay, got you.
But just,
So we
but just
can-
remember that the November general elections are
It's on
an
a, even year.
Okay, got
So,
that.
and for instance, again, I'm just kind of, thinking as we go, one thing we could do in 27, you could have 3 members elected to a 3-year term
Well, it's that same
and
one
2 members elected to a 5-year term. It would be a one-off, but that would get you on an even cycle and it would get you to staggered terms.
Right.
Okay.
So again, it would just take one transition, but you're thinking, again, you're planning for the future of the town. So you just got to get through those, those kind of anomaly cycles just to get on
Track.
every 2 exactly, just to get on track. There's got to be some transition.
Yeah.
All right, so we can come back to that general discussion. All right, so with regards to elections, we talked about switching from March to November. We'll just hold that as a placeholder. Special elections, we know from time to time there is a need to conduct special elections in the town. There are referenda, there are ballot questions that may be asked, charter amendment questions all require elections. There may be vacancies on the commission. A little later, we'll get into the filling of vacancies procedures. They, depending on how much time is left in a term, may require a special election. So typically, you provide for special elections in a municipal charter. They're also governed by state law. Just for reference, Chapter 99 through 106 of the Election Code, all of our elections are governed both by our charter and the Florida Election Code. Okay, so in fact, that next sentence, subsection 3, specifically says just that, except unless otherwise provided, the provisions of general law, which is the election code, and special election laws for the state of Florida and Broward County, specifically govern our elections, which is very routine, very standard. For conduct of elections, and then it provides this just allows the commission, should they choose to adopt additional procedures with regards to elections by ordinance, it gives the commission the authority to do that. However, there's nothing the commission can do that can conflict with either the charter or state law. So if there's clarifying procedures that they wanted to do, they have the ability to adopt those provisions. Section 3.3 is an oath of office. That's very standard. It's the standard oath that's taken in the state of Florida for municipal officials. So we didn't change that. The mayor. Okay, so we know that currently our mayor is elected by our commissioners, one of the 5, elected amongst themselves to a 4-year term. the duties and responsibilities of the mayor currently are essentially administrative in nature. Our mayor actually has some administrative power and authority over the day-to-day operations of the town. The commission manager form of government that you all have suggested transitioned the mayor to a more ceremonial role. The way that it currently reads in the proposal, it's that the mayor, as we know, must be an elector of the town, has to be a registered voter elected to a 4-year term by the electors of the town. The mayor is 20% of the commission. He or she has an equal voice and an equal vote in all commission proceedings. However, that person does preside over the commission meetings, as we know. They're recognized as the head of government for all ceremonial purposes, and from time to time, that does matter when you need to have the mayor's position, recognized either at the state or federal level. Having a person in that role does matter. Under state law, when the town is sued in a lawsuit, it's the mayor who actually is served process to effectuate a lawsuit. There's a mechanism under state law if the mayor's not available for the town to otherwise be sued through a commission member, another elected official, but typically it's the mayor who's designated to accept service of process on behalf of the town. The mayor has the authority to sign contracts once they're approved by the commission. If it's a contract that does not go to the commission, the manager has that authority. But that's true of deeds, other legal documents. The mayor has the ceremonial authority to sign. So this essentially lays out the duties and responsibilities of a ceremonial mayor. Now, in the absence of a mayor, it provides for the vice mayor to step in and perform that function. So that's what section 3.04 does. Now, section 3.05 is the vice mayor's role. We currently have a vice mayor. The vice mayor in Pembroke Park also has some administrative authority. Under our current governmental form, the vice mayor oversees the finance department, the financial organization. The way this currently would provide, the vice mayor essentially is the mayor designate in waiting, so to speak. So if the mayor was in any way unavailable or ill or infirm, or if there was a vacancy in the position of the mayor, you have the vice mayor who would step in and fulfill that duties.
Do we have a voice mayor?
We do?
Yes.
Yes, Vice Mayor DeVille.
Oh, I forget. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
What?
She asked, did we have a vice mayor?
I forget.
Okay, and we do.
Yes.
Okay, and you said the
I just
name.
remember now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with the name, so I don't know.
Now, with regards to the compensation of the commission, I think this was taken from our current charter, if I'm not mistaken. The way that I have it read is that the town commission may determine any change in the salary and compensation to the mayor and the commission by ordinance. But anytime the commission changes its compensation or changes its salary, that ordinance doesn't take effect until after the next election.
That's not fair.
Well,
Again,
it means you can't raise your own salary.
If
If I raise the salary for my seat, then it doesn't go up until somebody else has a chance to run for this.
Unless you're reelected, I mean, you get the benefit
Yeah.
if you're elected.
So you get, somebody else has got to have a chance.
Correct. In other words, you can't. And again, there's not a legal
It
requirement.
ain't like us, we get the 2% at first of the year. And then the next year we get the 2% or the 3%, whatever.
This is not a legal requirement. This is just language that we see often in charters. So I kept it. If you would like to make a change, by all means. Again, I'm not recommending it. I'm just offering it as a model. Now, any benefit plans provided to the mayor commission, again, must be established by ordinance. Those ordinances for additional benefits we have can take effect upon adoption.
So that's different.
It is different. The benefits are a little different. There's a difference between the compensation, salary, and the benefits. And again, I believe that's in your current charter. And it also provides for the mayor and the commission to be reimbursed their actual expenses for the performance of their job as a public official. There actually is a methodology in state law. It's in Chapter 112, which is the State Ethics Code, that provides for reimbursements, per diem compensation if commissioners are called away to travel to Tallahassee for Broward Days. I mean, there's different formulas to provide for certain reimbursements. Some cities have their own separate policies, but it does allow for the reimbursement to elected officials who might be performing official duties of the town that require them to incur some expense. Okay.
Compensation expense. That's very.
And again, I also, just for reference, I know that you all are really kind of seeing this for the first time. It's a lot to take in for the first time. After tonight, we're going to get through a little bit more of this tonight, but at our next month, we can go back to any of these provisions. If you take this home and it comes to you during the course of an evening and you want to go back and revisit any one of these sections, I just wanted to be able to walk you through what's in front of you so you can kind of think about some of the issues that we're talking about.
Okay.
All right, so section 3.07, this is a standard provision that we see in a lot of municipal charters. This pertains to filing fees and notices of candidacy. What it says is that any candidate seeking election as a member of the town commission, they're required to file a notice of candidacy with the clerk, stating the commission seat to which they're seeking to be elected. And we talked about that. So if I want to run for commission seat 1, when I declare my candidacy, I need to say that I'm running for this position. I can't, say I'm going to run for position 1, and then, the day before qualifying ends, when I see that nobody's decided to run for position 3, jump over there. For you, when you declare your candidacy, you identify which position on the commission you're going to run for. Again,
But if we change, like we talked about earlier, we change that, is it still gonna be, I'm gonna file for the second commissioner seat?
yes. And remember, distinguish seats from districts. We're eliminating districts. So we're saying 1, 2, 3, 4, and a mayor, right? So when I come in to qualify, I go to the clerk's office. I've got my declaration of candidacy, my qualifying paperwork. I say, Madam Clerk, I'm going to qualify to run for commission seat 1, or I'm going to qualify to run for commission seat 2. But I'm identifying the position on the commission that I'm seeking to fill. And you state that at the time you declare your candidate.
Well, what happens if it turns out 100 people did commission seat number 1 and only 10 people did commission seat number 2?
And commission
nobody.
seat 1 will have a very competitive race.
Okay.
Could happen.
And 4 could
But-
be a shoe-in.
Well,
Could be a white
But
ticket.
it is true that sometimes they wait till qualifying, which
yeah.
is at 12 o'clock, and at 11 o'clock they could say, I'm changing seats. Because maybe 100 went to seat 1,
Also, let me
but you
switch.
got nobody
Somebody going in for
in
that
seat
next.
4.
Yeah, but the qualifying's already over.
No,
No, this is
No.
before.
No.
This is before qualifying.
Just before it's
She's
over.
referring to prior to the end of qualifying.
Last minute.
Yeah, she's talking about a
That's
qualifying.
happened a lot.
Yeah, last minute.
I would.
Well, I mean, the
They literally stand there.
I
at-
would.
It's 12 o'clock.
To see how many people running for that and go for the one that.
but how would they
one
know?
right
How
has
would
the
they know
least.
that?
It's
They
public
literally
information.
stand there.
Remember, I have on the already on in our situation is different because you can't switch. You're in this district, and that's where you gotta go. You can't go to another one. But in that type of situation that he's explained, okay, I upload to their website how many people are running for how many seats.
And how many days is this that you're doing this before the election?
Qualifying for us is 3 days.
3 days
So
before the
I-
election?
No,
No. Qualifying is determined by the supervisor of elections. Our ordinance says 3 days of qualifying, but you can have gotten all your paperwork 2-3 months before, 6 months before, a year before. But qualifying is the period of time where that's it. This is the moment.
That's your filing time.
That then everything on there has to be perfect. The way your name is gonna come on the ballot, all your information has to be specific. No changes.
Okay.
So I had one candidate that wanted to put in her nickname, but qualifying was over, so I couldn't make the change.
Okay.
But if she would have come in 12 o'clock before Friday, she could have changed.
Okay.
you may.
Does that make
recall-
sense?
Well, you may recall in the last gubernatorial race, the agriculture commissioner Nikki Freed, ran in the Democratic primary. Her name is Nicole Freed. But when she came in to qualify to the Secretary of State, she put her nickname.
Yeah, because people know her by that
People
name.
know her as
By
Nikki.
yeah.
So it said Nicole Nikki
Yeah.
Freed, and she timely, she did that properly when she went in to qualify, and she was able to use a nickname on the ballot.
Yeah.
There have been nicknames that have been challenged. There have been judicial challenges
Oh, boy.
over using nicknames. But again, there's a whole legal standard to determine whether or not you can actually use a nickname on the ballot. But a lot of times you see this in judicial races. There are judicial divisions in the courthouse, and you've got people that want to run for these open seats. So they'll see there'll be 5 people running for this open seat, but nobody's qualified for that seat yet. So at 11:58, you'll see somebody scoot in and qualify for that open seat, and it's a game, for lack of a better word, that candidates at all levels of government. It's an exercise that's very, very common. Pembroke Park is not unique in that. But with regards to filing, again, our current charter provides for a $25 filing fee. I didn't change that, so the fee for the town would still be $25, and then there's a separate state assessment under the Florida Election Code. Again, I didn't change that language either. Okay, the next section really does have some bearing with regards to the legislative function of the town. We do not have a robust process to fill vacancies on the commission. We are in dire need of one. The fact that we only have 3 commission members now is indicative of that. We have 3 now, but you may or may not be aware that not this past September, last September, but in September of 2021, we had a situation where we only had 2 town commission members, and we were at risk of not being able to adopt the budget. And it was really
2 is not quorum.
correct. And there are certain legal requirements when it comes to setting a millage rate and adopting a budget. And we were really in a very, very unique position. And fortunately, the commission was able to appoint somebody just before a deadline to get a budget adopted, and we were able to sort that out. Melissa was the town attorney at the time, but she had kind of reached out to my office just to help, brainstorm a little bit as to how to navigate that very unique territory. But suffice to say, what I've done is I've looked through a number of municipal charters of similar composition and size and tried to give you something to think about as it relates to filling vacancies. I know we actually had talked about this at one of our earlier meetings. I tried to embrace those discussions as well. So the way that section 3.8 reads is that the office of mayor commission shall become vacant upon the member's death, resignation, or removal from office by any reason authorized by law, or forfeiture of office. Now, our charter currently says forfeiture to be declared by the remaining members of the commission. I have some concern about that language because I think it is debatable whether a commission can remove one of their own members. There is no case law in Florida to that effect. There's one circuit court case from DeBary, Florida, somewhere in the northern part of the state, where the issue was looked at. Again, the voters of Pembroke Park, you elect your commission members, right? There is no job description for an elected official. And how an elected official decides to conduct themselves while in office really is up to them. And we've seen instances over the years where other members of commissions have tried to remove one of their own. I do not believe that is lawful. At least I haven't seen the circumstances where that could occur. Your charter does currently speak to forfeiture of office. Now, I suppose if somebody moved away, right, moved out of town, we may want to have some language in there that would allow the other members to declare that that person has forfeited their office because they're no longer qualified to serve, no longer meet the qualifications under the charter to serve. So I kept that language in there for that reason. So it requires some affirmative action by the commission to declare that the seat has been forfeited. But I just didn't want to suggest by having that language that a member of the commission can remove one of their own. Because again, you may have 4 people who dislike one.
Right.
It doesn't matter. The people have voted for that one. The other 4
But-
don't get to.
So you're saying that's how we have it now?
I no. I think you currently have this forfeiture language in there. I just don't know how that's ever been interpreted. So I left it alone. I didn't touch it. It's there now. The only instance where I could see it actually coming into play is if somebody was no longer eligible or qualified to serve, and the remaining members had to declare a vacancy.
Or if they're not
Declare
doing
the seat has
their,
been forfeited.
So my
if they're not
question
doing their
is,
job.
a commissioner cannot remove a commissioner.
I do not believe so.
But what
But
what do we got in here?
Something bad, commit a felony, or what if all those things?
The governor can. Under state law, if a person, if an elected official,
Governor for that.
no, the state law, it does not need to be addressed in the charter. Under state law, if an elected official commits a crime, is charged with a crime. Again, it could be a misdemeanor. We've seen misdemeanors. But if an elected official is charged with a misdemeanor or a felony, more often than not, the governor will suspend that person from office. Now, the person is suspended, but they're not, right? If you are charged with the crime,
You're not guilty.
you are not. You are suspended. You are. You go through the judicial process. If you are found not guilty, if you're exonerated, you are entitled to your seat back, with all back pay, back benefits, everything you lost.
Wow.
Right now, you may recall a couple years ago, we dealt with some of these situations in real kind of practical approach in the city of Tamarack. There were some issues in Tamarack some number of years ago with regards to some development matters and some kind of untoward development teams in the city. And the mayor was suspended from office, and one of their commissioners was suspended from office. They were suspended by the governor. Both of them went to trial. Both of them were found not guilty, and both of them were reinstated, and they were entitled to their full back pay and all benefits that come along with that.
So what does the current town have as far as, can the commissioner decide if somebody needs to go?
The commission cannot remove one.
Fine. You just said it.
No, the commission cannot remove one of its own.
Okay.
We have to get the governor to do it.
So they
and
misuse
if-
their position.
And we
their
don't have to
conduct.
ask it.
Don't that,
It
for them
does
to go
that
to court,
on
isn't
its
that
own.
costly to the city? To the court procedure?
But that's a
or they-
state. that's a
Well,
state crime.
no,
That's
remember, if let's say that one of our commission members was charged with a crime, the governor suspended them from office, right? That is not depending on what the crime is. Let's say it that way. If it is an offense that relates to their official position, right, and they are acquitted, under state law, they're entitled to have the city reimburse their attorney's fees. If it is an offense that is unrelated to their official position,
They have to standard cost.
then they may be removed from office, but they may not be entitled to their fees. Depending on what the offense is. If somebody's charged with, bribery, some public corruption crime, and they're acquitted, turns out was untrue, they're entitled to their defense, and they're entitled to all of their benefits and back pay that they would have otherwise received. But if it was a DUI manslaughter while they were on the dais that's completely disconnected to their public position, they may be suspended from office, but they're not necessarily entitled to their fees for an offense that's not within the scope of their official position. Now, this forfeiture of office section, this is out of your current charter. I have not touched this section either, and we spoke about this. A member of the commission is deemed to have forfeited their office if they lack the qualifications. That's the example we were talking about. Somebody moves out of town. They're no longer qualified to sit, right? If they're convicted of a felony while they're in office. If somebody is convicted of a felony while they're in office, the governor would remove them, right? It's not a suspension at that point. Once you are convicted of that crime, you are removed from office by the governor. Now, this speaks to failure to attend 4 regular commission meetings unless such absences are excused by motion with the reason stating in the minutes. I have not researched that issue. I have some question as to the validity of that provision, but I left it in there. I don't know that it's ever been tested. But again, if I'm elected to office. I decide to take 6 months traveling the world, and I'm not at a commission meeting for 6 months.
You're getting paid.
Is it the people? Is it my fellow commissioners' job to remove me, or am I accountable to the people who elected me? Right?
Or is the city still paying you for them 6 months you got?
They should be.
Get a salary.
What?
Well, then how
Not if you on vacation.
how is the city going to, how is the constituency going to hold him responsible?
Well, at the next election,
Oh, but that means he,
or
no,
or
no.
or under Florida law, there's something called a municipal recall process, where an elected official can be recalled by the people who voted for them. Now, that is a process that is preempted to the state. So we don't get to decide what process we're going to use in Pembroke Park to recall an elected official.
Yeah.
The municipal recall process is preempted to state law.
But that is crazy. You're saying that the city, I'm paying you to go on vacation for 6 months, and you ain't doing anything in the city.
And I can't do anything about it until the next election?
The reason you're describing is the reason why I have not touched that section.
Wow.
My thought process was we would leave it in there. It gives the commission that authority. If the commission wanted to act on that authority, then really it's up to the person who is aggrieved to challenge it. Right? I mean, there is other recourse. I'm not suggesting taking it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it is in there. It's in your current charter. I left it there.
Okay.
Right? I question it, but I did not touch it.
Could you possibly do some research for us to find out how, if that's legal or questionable, or how to make it legal? Because I definitely want to see some way to hold somebody accountable if they just become elected and then they just don't
want to do the job.
Don't do the job at all. They're not even bothered to come to the meetings. I mean, it's one thing if
How
they come
often
to the
do they
meetings
have
and
those
don't do anything.
meetings?
Our commission meetings, we have 2 meetings a month, 1 workshop a month and 1 regular meeting a month.
And those meetings last 2, 3, 4, 6,
Hours.
12 hours.
Couple hours.
If they have something
You
to
can't
vote
do
on, I
2
guess
hours
it drags
twice a
out,
month.
right?
What?
If they have something to discuss and no one decided, it drags out, correct?
It can, but mostly it's discussions. I mean, workshops, there's no vote, and we don't have to have a quorum.
But you're talking about, no more than 10 hours in a month.
Yeah.
2 5-hour meetings would be the most.
Yeah, I'd say yes.
And you can't find time to do that, and you're getting paid?
What?
Like I said, I left it in there.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Let's
so,
move on.
but let's say that we have a vacancy. This is, all right, so here's, really, for whatever reason, be it death, resignation, forfeiture, we've got a vacancy in our commission, right? Put aside the fact that we have 2 currently. Let's just say at some point in the future, we have a vacancy. All right, now, if that vacancy occurs, the way this is proposed, the remaining members of the commission may, by majority vote, appoint a qualified individual, so you have to be qualified under the charter, to fill the vacancy on an interim basis. All right, and the commission would adopt a resolution essentially setting out a process to fill that vacancy, which is fairly common. Now, if there are less than 180 days before the next general municipal election, so less than roughly 6 months before the next election in the town, the interim commissioner who was appointed would serve until that next election. All right, so you would never have an appointee serving more than 6 months. Okay, now, if there are more than 180 days before the next general municipal election, then the town would be required to call a special election to fill the vacancy. And that special election would take place as soon as practical, but no more than 180 days from the date the vacancy occurred, subject to one thing, and that's the concurrence of the Broward County Supervisor of Elections. Now, I'll tell you, in my experience, the Supervisor of Elections does not always make it easy when it comes to special elections. Right? We have, for instance, a vacancy in the city of North Lauderdale right now. And the commission couldn't agree on an appointee. They were split 2-2 after multiple candidates. So they, under their charter, went to conduct a special election to fill the vacancy. But the supervisor of elections says, I'm not having any elections in North Lauderdale before March, which is when the next round of elections is. And that was outside the timeframes in their charter, but the town couldn't, the supervisor controls the poll machines, the polling places, the poll workers. So all the city can say in that instance is, okay. So there'll be an election in North Lauderdale in March to fill one district seat that was created as a result of the vacancy. So again, we have a provision that allows for special elections, but they are subject to coordination with the supervisor of elections, which is very common. They control the election process. They can really do all the things that we need mechanically to make sure that our elections run smoothly.
That's actually the situation we had here.
Here too. Yeah, it's not uncommon.
I couldn't get a special election. That's how we ended up with 3.
What do you mean, 3 commissions?
Yeah,
Commissioner?
because I wasn't able to get a, well, first of all, the commission wouldn't approve a special election, but the supervisor of elections would not provide me with a special election date.
Yeah, because
Because there was there were no elections at that time. Because they would, you would have, if you have a couple of other municipalities that have it, then they'll go ahead, and it has to be in that zone area or whatever. So it was a hot mess.
Yeah, I can just
The
imagine.
easiest way to
Just
say it.
I mean,
imagine.
the other example is, so, many cities, Pembroke Park included, have March elections. Now, most cities have March elections in even-numbered years. Okay, we know that every 4 years, there's a presidential preference primary, right? There's a provision in state law that allows a city that has March elections in the year of a presidential primary to change their election date to coincide with the primary. It's just in a matter of efficiency. They know they've got this national presidential primary race, and sometimes the presidential primary is 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after when we would otherwise have our city election, town election. So the provision in state law allows cities to change their election to coincide with the primary. I think about 8 years ago, the primary in Florida was in January. And the city of Pembroke Pines said to the supervisor's office, we're not changing our election. We have our elections in March. These commissioners were elected for a 4-year term that ends in March. They're not going to agree to reduce their term by 2.5 months and sit for election in January. And the supervisor of elections told the city at the time, well, I'm not having March elections, so good luck.
Now what you gonna do?
And in that instance,
me now?
and in that instance, of course, the city said, well,
You got no choice.
we have no choice.
How
What are
you
we,
gonna
what
tell
are we,
us
what are we going to do?
What you gonna
So,
do?
and again, this was 8, maybe 10 years ago, whenever it was. But at that time, the city was compelled to change its elections from March to January. Which is why we reference the supervisor of elections. It just, again, as much as we may want to do something or comply with dates and deadlines in our charter, we are to some extent beholden to that office.
Yeah.
Okay, and in the event of a vacancy, the position of mayor, the vice mayor, as we said earlier, would assume the role of the mayor. And then when the vice mayor becomes the acting mayor, the remaining members would appoint somebody to become the interim commissioner filling the vice mayor's seat. It's essentially a trickle-down effect. And the same is true with the vacancy of the vice mayor. The remaining members appoint somebody else to be the vice mayor, and you go through that vacancy process. This last provision under vacancies is very common in municipal charters. I've never seen this actually occur. We actually came close in Pembroke Park because, as I said, during that budget cycle when we only had 2 commissioners, there's a provision that provides for what's referred to as an extraordinary vacancy when a majority of the commission is removed. In that instance, typically the governor has the ability to make interim appointments until the special election is held. But there needs to be some bodies in the seat just to conduct the business of the town. Again, that's very, very rare. I've never seen that occur, but we do reference it in charters. Okay. Couple prohibitions. Now, I think that we've talked about one of these two things. One of them I don't know that we've talked about before, but they're relatively common in commission manager forms of government. So I did put them in here. I did want to give you the opportunity to think about these things. And what 3.09 says is that, except where authorized by law, mayor and commission shall not hold the position of town manager or any other town office or any town employment or other elected official office during the term in which they're elected to the Pembroke Park Commission. Now, there is a provision in the Florida Constitution which prohibits 3.09 Constitution, which prohibits what's referred to as dual office holding. Right? You cannot hold two offices that have overlapping terms. And if your intent is to run for an office that has a term that overlaps with the one you currently sit in, you're required to resign from that position at least 10 days prior to qualifying. The effective date of your resignation may be after you're elected. You don't need to leave office 10 days prior to qualifying, but you have to resign 10 days prior to qualifying. And this essentially embraces that provision. What it also says is that neither the mayor nor any member of the commission can become an employee of Pembroke Park for at least 1 year after they've left office. Again, that is a policy decision. I do not know if you feel one way or the other about that. I'm not offering it as a recommendation, but it's a provision that we see in a lot of municipal charters. I don't know if you have an opinion on it. I put it in
Keeps
there.
people from making deals on their way out. You know, if I'm gonna leave office and, well, I tell you what, we do this and then you'll hire me when I leave. Keeps that kind of deal from happening.
You think that's it? Suppose they just don't want this role anymore and they want to apply for something. They have to wait at least a year for that?
That's the intent. The intent is so that people don't, I guess, enrich themselves through their elected office. So they don't have an elected office, and you know, during the course of that position, they say, "Well, I could do that job better than the rec director can. I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna leave office now, and I've got to deal with the city manager. He's gonna hire me as the rec director, you know, the week after I leave office."
Right.
I mean, that's sort of what that is intended to prohibit.
Because it happens.
It could happen. I mean, I've seen,
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. But I don't know if you feel strongly about it. If you want to think of it, I mean, I'm just gonna kind of leave it there, just for reference, and we can always come back to that if you'd like. Next provision, section 2, 3.09, subsection 2. This provision, at least for your professional staff, is probably the most important provision in a municipal charter. Your town manager cannot operate effectively without a provision that reads like this in a manager form of government. And what this says is that with the exception of inquiries and investigations, the commission and its members shall deal with town officers and employees who are subject to the direction of the manager solely through the manager. And neither the commission nor its members can give orders or direction to any staff that works for the manager. So there's essentially an organizational chart. You got the people of Pembroke Park on the top. You got a 5-member elected body. Below that elected body, it splits. You got your town manager, you got your town attorney. Everybody else that works for the town of Pembroke Park falls under the town manager. And if the commission wanted to provide direction to your finance director, or to your public works director, or to your rec director, it would all go through the manager. But if the commission wanted to fire your parks director or your finance director, they'd have to go through the manager. If they don't, if the commission didn't like the way that the town was operating, of course, it's through the manager. Every other employee works for the manager, whoever is in that position.
So,
And we-
Oh, wait a
wait a
minute.
minute.
Wait a minute.
Are you saying
But
that
the
the manager has all that control of
I'm saying that
no one can, everybody has to go through that manager if it's an employee?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not doing their job. Okay, I'm just giving an
Thing.
example. If it's an employee that's not doing their job, and those commissions or whatever we want to call them see that this is not being done, they can't do anything about it. And if the manager says
They could say something
they
to
can
them.
say something, but he has the right to say no. I'm not going to fire that person.
that's correct.
Pretty much, that's what you're saying.
That is correct.
That's a lot of power for one
It-
person.
That is correct. And the to that is when you have department directors and city employees who know that I may work for the city manager, but if I'm unhappy with the manager, I can always go around to these 5 elected officials and, finesse my job that way. I'm less concerned about what the person who employed me has to think, knowing that he doesn't really have the authority to discipline me.
Oh wow.
I mean, it works both ways.
It does.
It
Because
works.
then the
Yeah.
city manager
And-
can have somebody
And
put
ultimately,
in a position, and nobody can get rid of that
It- it's-
person but him.
well,
it
yeah,
works
but then this commission
should
can
be a
always
body.
get rid of the city manager.
That's exactly right. Now,
The-
one thing that I don't think that I have it in here, but I could certainly add it. And again, this is going to be
That
when
town
we get,
manager got to be real good on the side of everybody because I don't know. I think
That
I'm
is
rethinking my thing about the
when we get to
commission and manage. I don't know.
That's a lot of power.
the city manager has a lot of authority. The city manager is essentially the CEO of the city.
Yeah, he has more power than the mayor. Really?
The commission, but think of it this way: the manager is the CEO. The commission is the board of directors.
Yes.
That's the analogy.
Yeah.
And once you appoint a CEO, the CEO runs the company.
Yes.
CEO
Yes.
He runs the company, and the board does not get stick his little fingers in the day-to-day business.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Question.
But let me
Okay.
but let me offer one comment. One thing that is not in here, but may be a check, essentially, on what you're referring to. Some municipal charters require all department directors to be approved by the commission, both their hiring and termination. So they work for the manager, but the manager would have to present their recommendation to the commission to hire and fire. Again, there's positives and negatives to that approach. I've seen it. I've seen both of them. I'm not recommending that necessarily, but
Kind of sound fair to me.
but it is a check that is built into some.
Yeah, but it's like this in,
charters.
that's like this in normal life. You know?
Now,
If I
no-
could just interject real
please.
quick. Okay, so understand what the average municipality is, where these commissioners, their job is to put together the law. That's their job. It's not to get involved with the day-to-day.
I agree.
It's not to get involved with the employees and what the employees want and what the employees, come to you to be like, well, I want, 10 days vacation and I want this and that's not their position.
Right.
They're to make the laws for your residents. Okay? That manager has to comply with the laws you guys created. So it's up to him to implement those policies. What happens here is because of a very interesting situation that we currently have. Okay? We have always the residents are on top, right? Then you have your elected, correct?
But doesn't seem so.
Then you have your manager, correct? And then you have your department heads and the employees. These department heads, even though this manager wants to hire them or fire them, only goes ahead and gives a recommendation to these commissioners, and then these commissioners can say no. Okay? So then now these managers, do you think they're going to respect? Do you think these directors are going to respect this manager?
No.
Okay. And then under them are the employees, correct? So who do you think these employees report to?
Department head.
They're supposed to report to the director.
The
Okay.
department
But
head.
when they
But-
feel these directors are not going ahead
They'll
and
go over
supporting
ahead.
them, again, they go to the commissioners. So now
Gotcha.
you've developed a bunch of steps
Yeah.
without any questions going up. Okay? And since up here is not sending them back down to where they need to be, then that's where you have, this is why you're all here.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It
Yeah.
does, yeah, and again,
So it's not, I'm not, what I'm trying to explain to you is it's not about power, okay? But somebody has to be the one managing, steering the ship. You know, you've only got one president. You don't have 20. You know, so somebody has to be the one to really do the day-to-day.
So who hires the city manager?
the
The
commission.
commissioners.
Your commission hires the manager, and your commission hires your town attorney. Right?
But they can't tell the manager what to do.
Everybody else, well, your commission could tell the manager what to do. The
he doesn't
commission
have to-
could tell the manager what to do all day long.
Yeah,
Have to do it.
Well, but no, but remember, the
They hire
manager
and fire.
they can
the
fire.
manager takes direction from a majority of 3 on the commission.
Okay.
Right? The manager works for the commission.
Mm-hmm.
If the commission wants something done, goes through the manager to staff, right, or to the legal counsel.
Okay. Got it.
I like the business analogy where the
Okay.
commissioners, the board of directors,
The
they have
CEO.
ultimate power.
Absolutely.
If anything in the business is not going the way they like, they have a right to say so.
Yeah.
But it's they go to the CEO and say, okay, I don't like this. I don't like our sales. You need to do something about the sales division.
Exactly.
But they don't go to the sales division themselves.
Correct.
Because remember, the manager is not elected.
And-
The manager is not accountable to the people of Pembroke Park. The 5 commission members are.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the 5 commission members that appoint a professional manager who's, there's certain qualifications, accreditation requirements, certain background. I mean, there's certain, things that you expect of a manager. Right? And the argument is you need to give the manager the tools to do the job. But if the manager's employees know that they can always go to the commission, or better said, if they don't know who to take direction from, you've got the manager, but then you've got, and I'm not suggesting this happens, but then you've got the mayor who pulls the finance director aside and says, I want you to do these 5 things. The department director's job is, Mr. Mayor, thank you, I need you to talk to the manager, right? Because the charter is very clear that the commission cannot give direction to staff.
Right.
The commission can give direction to the manager, the commission can give direction to the town attorney, but if the commission wants staff to implement some policy directive, it needs to go through the manager, and again, that direction would come at a public noticed meeting.
Yeah.
That's not to say that the commission cannot inquire of staff. The charter specifically speaks to inquiries, investigations into all manner of governmental operations. Right? It's not intended to stifle the commission's ability to interact with staff and to understand the way that the town operates. But it is intended to provide a very clearly delineated chain of command, for lack of a better term. So the employees know who they report to, manager knows who he or she reports to, commission knows who they report. It just provides that that delineation of responsibility.
Got it.
It's generally referred to as a non-interference provision,
Yeah.
where the commission doesn't interfere with the day-to-day operations of the town.
Okay.
So anyways, we can come back to it. I put it in there.
No, I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's clear understanding of what you're saying. I got it now.
Okay.
Can we finish?
I was gonna say, can we? I've had about enough for one night.
Because we're section 3.10.
What I'd like to do,
Brain is exploding.
if I could get through 3.11, we'll have finished the legislative side.
Okay.
Let's just go through 2 more sections.
2 hours and
We'll be done with the legislative side, and then we'll wrap it up for tonight.
Okay.
All right, real quick, and these are very simple, straightforward items. procedures and meetings. We know at the first regular meeting of the town commission following the receipt of certified election results. Remember, it's not after an election, it's after we get the certified election results from the supervisor of election. At the first regular meeting, we're swearing in. I don't know how we currently do that, Marlon. Do we, after we get certified results, do we have special meetings to swear people in? Do we wait till the next regular meeting to swear in newly elected officials?
I have absolutely no idea.
Okay. Then
No, I
guess-
think it is I think it is in the ordinance. I've just got to read it to be
Alright,
honest.
so we'll
But I
look
think
at
it's the first I know that it is the first meeting that's when they
Swear in. Yeah, take the oath.
well, no, swear in, but actually pick who's going to be mayor,
Mayor,
president,
okay.
and all that stuff.
Well, again, I didn't know if we call a special meeting to swear people in. That's more of a ceremonial function. We can clarify. Regular meetings, again, the commission shall schedule regular meetings by resolution. This gives them some flexibility if they want to, take a month off in the summer, which a lot of cities do, to give their staff an opportunity to get caught up. But it gives the commission some flexibility with regards to its scheduling. Special meetings, so just generally, and I'm not going to get into all the details, typically a governing body, a city commission, has regular meetings, special meetings, workshop meetings, and emergency meetings. Those are the four kinds of meetings that a public body would typically meet. Regular meetings, fall within our regular meeting cycle. Special meetings can be called by the mayor or a majority of the commission on no less than 48 hours notice. A workshop meeting is less informal, no actions taken at a workshop. Quorum, as Marlon indicated, is not required for a workshop meeting. I don't like that provision. I understand it's relatively common. I left it in there. Emergency meetings, again, for matters affecting health, safety, and welfare on no less than 4 hours notice. Those are very uncommon, thankfully. Our meetings are governed by Robert's Rules of Order, so this is just a statement to embrace the procedures. And the last item is section 3.11, 3.11, which is the initiative, referendum, and recall process. You talk about the municipal recall, it references chapter 100 of the Florida statutes. That's where that process is embraced. This is what speaks to the ability of citizens in the town, of you all, of people who live in the town, the ability to essentially initiate ordinances, get items on the ballot, provide for amendments to the charter. There are some limited exceptions, but this is fairly routine language in the municipal charter, so I left it in there. I think it's currently in our charter as well. But that's the legislative structure, foundation that we put together. Again, I know I'm not going to go beyond that because the next portion of the charter, Article 4, speaks to the administration side. This is where we get into the city manager, the city attorney, the finances. I'm saying city, the town manager, town attorney, town finances, all those things. So we can get into that.
Town manager and city manager, that's the same word. Same word.
Correct, same thing. But again, I know we went through a lot this evening. I know there's some things that you still need to, think through, think about. When we come back next month, if you want to revisit anything that we've discussed, having had the opportunity to, sleep on it for a couple nights, whatever it is, happy to continue the conversation. I want to just thank you all for your attention this evening, at least as we got through that first section.
Yeah, we did half.
So you got through part of it. Yeah, you did pretty good. You guys, nobody fell asleep on me. Good. All right.
All right, I make a motion, we adjourn.
I second that.
You got old business and announcements.
Oh, we do. I didn't even
You
read.
gotta finish your agenda, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah.
Old business? Do we have any old business?
No, you don't have any old business.
Old business.
On announcements, just so you know, I didn't put it on here, but your next meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 27th. So if you guys
Okay.
can make that, and then
The last Monday in the month.
Yeah.
all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Okay, we're out of here.
7:56.
7:56.
7:56.
2 hours. Oh my God, you guys think I'm monopolize 1 hour of my time?
Pretty pictures.
Oh wait, I have to.
I think I need to revisit the city man